Sometimes I wonder if my father ever truly saw me as his daughter, or just a backup plan, an investment he could cash in when life got hard. If I had known what would happen, would I still have helped him? Maybe not. But one thing is certain, I will never let anyone use me like that again. Growing up, my father, Ethan Wright, seemed larger than life. He was a self-made businessman and the proud owner of Wright and Sons Manufacturing, a company that had been in our family for 3 generations. It was more than just a business to him. It was his identity, his pride, more important to him than his wife, his children more important than me. In our house, love was never unconditional. My father believed in one thing: results. You earned your place, or you didn't have one at all. My older brother Bradley was the chosen one, the heir to the company. He was the golden child, groomed from birth to lead. I was the fallback, the one who had to figure things out alone. After all, emotions had no place in business. I still remember being 12, sitting at the dinner table, listening to my father brag about Bradley becoming the next great leader. I looked up, eager, and asked, "What about me, Dad?" He laughed, ruffled my hair, and said, "Sweetheart, you'll do just fine on your own. Women don't need to run companies. They marry into them." Everyone laughed. I laughed too, but it stung. By the time I was old enough to prove him wrong, I had no desire to be part of Wright and Sons. I built my future. I earned a scholarship, went to college, and created a career in financial consulting. My father barely acknowledged any of it. But oddly enough, Bradley had it worse. He struggled under the weight of expectations. He was reckless with money and careless with leadership, and slowly the company started to fall apart. But my father couldn't or wouldn't see it. Then, one cold December morning, the call came. "Kathleen, we need to talk," he said. "No greetings. No warmth. Just business. Come to the house tonight." When I arrived, he was already at the dining table, papers spread out before him. My mother sat quietly beside him, her face lined with worry. Bradley was there too, swirling a glass of whiskey, his knee bouncing nervously. "The company is in trouble," my father said. I wasn't surprised. I had suspected it for years. "I need your help. You work in finance. You know how to fix things." I picked up the papers and scanned the numbers. Debt. Falling revenue. Mismanagement. It was worse than I imagined. "How much do you need?" I asked. $7 million. I almost laughed. $7 million? I don't have that kind of money. He didn't flinch. "But you have connections. Investors. You know how to restructure debt." That's when it hit me. He didn't just want advice. He wanted me to risk my reputation, my career, and my finances for a company that had never been mine, for a father who had never truly supported me. I should have walked away. But deep down, I wanted to prove that I was more than capable, that I was indispensable. So, I said yes. For the next 5 months, I gave everything. I brought in financial experts, negotiated with creditors, and convinced investors to give the company a second chance. I poured in my time, my knowledge, and my resources. Slowly it worked. The company stabilized. It wasn't thriving yet, but it had pulled back from the edge of disaster. Then, 3 weeks before Christmas, I received an email from my father's lawyer. A revised will. I opened it, my heart sinking with every word. He had left everything to Bradley. There wasn't a single mention of me. After everything I had done, I was still invisible. I confronted him that same night. I stormed into his study and threw the papers on his desk. "Explain this." He barely looked up. "This is how it should be," my father said. I clenched my fists, trying to stay calm. "I saved your company, Dad. I put my name, my reputation on the line, and you're telling me that doesn't matter?" He rubbed his temples like he was tired of the conversation. "Kathleen, you'll be fine. You always are. But Bradley, he needs this. He's the future of this company." I let out a bitter laugh and nodded slowly. "All right," I said quietly. "Then let Bradley figure it out from now on." And just like that, I turned and walked away. I cut the money off. I ended the support. For the first time in my life, I stopped trying to earn my father's approval. A week later, my phone rang. Some small part of me still hoped it might be an apology, or maybe just a kind word. But no. The moment I picked up, his voice snapped through the line. Where the hell is my money? No hello. No gratitude. No regret. I gripped the phone tighter and smiled bitterly. No. Hi, Kathleen. No. Thanks for everything. I'm fine, by the way. Thanks for asking. Silence. Then he scoffed. Don't be dramatic. You have a duty to this family. And just like that, something inside me broke. A duty? After all the years, I was treated like I didn't matter. After being seen as a backup plan, a resource, not a daughter? I took a deep breath. No, Dad, I said calmly. I don't. And I hung up. I stared at my phone, my heart racing. Any second now, he'd call back. He'd realize what he'd done. He'd say sorry. But the screen stayed dark. The silence wrapped around me like fog, thick and heavy. For the first time in my life, my father needed something from me, and I refused to give it. And instead of trying to make things right, he responded with pride, with anger, as if I was just a tool he could no longer use. A bitter laugh escaped me. I shouldn't have been surprised. And yet some small, foolish part of me had hoped this time would be different. That night, I barely slept. I kept checking my phone, half expecting it to ring. But it didn't. My father was stubborn. If I didn't fold immediately, he'd wait, let me sit with guilt, then swoop in expecting me to give in. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. The next morning at work, I walked into my office, still carrying the weight of it. My assistant looked at me, concerned. Everything okay, Kathleen? She asked gently. I forced a smile. Yeah, just some family stuff. She nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. I'd always been the strong one, the fixer, the one with all the answers. But this time, I wasn't fixing anything. I was letting it fall apart, letting it burn. By the end of the week, the emails started. The first was polite. From Ethan Wright, subject. Let's be reasonable, Kathleen. I know you're upset. But family is family. We don't turn our backs on each other. Call me. I deleted it. 4 days later, another one. Subject. This is bigger than you. You're being short-sighted. You built your career on financial strategy. You should know that Wright & Sons is a long-term investment. You helped save it. Why throw it all away now? Bradley's struggling. Come fix this before it's too late. Of course, Bradley was struggling. I'd seen that coming for years. And still, my father thought I was the problem. This time I replied. From Kathleen Wright, subject. This is bigger than you. It's not my job to clean up Bradley's messes. It never was. I hit send before I could change my mind. A week later, my father showed up, unannounced, at my office. I was in the middle of a meeting when my assistant gently knocked on the conference room door. Miss Wright, your father is here. Everyone turned to look at me. I kept my face calm. Tell him I'm busy. He says it's urgent. Of course, it was urgent. Everything was urgent when he needed something. I stood up with a sigh. Give me 10 minutes. When I stepped into the waiting area, I saw him pacing by the windows. He looked different, tired, less put together than usual. His suit was still pressed, but the weight on his shoulders was visible. His suit was crisp, as always, but the tie hung loose, and the hair he usually styled so carefully looked messy, like he'd been running his hands through it all morning. He turned when he heard my heels clicking against the marble floor. Kathleen, he said, forcing a smile. Good to see you. I crossed my arms. Is it? He sighed through his nose, clearly trying to keep his temper in check. I didn't come here to fight. I tilted my head. You show up at my office, uninvited, after I've ignored every message you've sent, and you don't want to fight? His jaw tightened. I just want to talk. Then talk, I said with a sigh. He paused like the conversation wasn't going the way he'd planned. Then, finally, he got to the point. The company's still in trouble. The investors are nervous. Bradley's overwhelmed. I raised an eyebrow. He looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. We need you back. We like I were still part of Wright & Sons. Like I hadn't been erased from the will, tossed aside the moment I stopped being useful. I let out a dry, humorless laugh. No, his face hardened. Kathleen, this isn't just about you. If the company goes under, it's not just us. There are families, employees, people who rely on us. Are you going to be this selfish? There it was, the guilt. The same trick he'd used my entire life. The same pressure I had always given in to. But this time, it didn't work. I met his eyes. My voice was calm and sure. I already saved it once. That was my part. I don't owe you anything. His expression darkened. That company was always meant for Bradley. You knew that. Yes, I had always known. But still, when Bradley failed, who had he come running to? I shook my head, a bitter smile tugging at my lips, then let Bradley handle it. I turned and walked away. Kathleen. I looked back over my shoulder. This conversation is over, Dad. And for the first time, I meant every word. I expected a response within a day. Maybe an angry voicemail, a surprise visit, another plea. My father never accepted no. But then a day passed. Then 2 weeks. Then 3. Silence. At first, I thought maybe he had finally listened. Maybe for once he understood. But I should have known better. When the next move came, it wasn't from him. It was from my mother. I was leaving work late one evening, rubbing at the headache behind my eyes, when my phone rang. I saw her name and hesitated. Unlike my father, she rarely called. She had always been the quiet observer, the neutral one, the woman who let things happen but never stopped them. I answered. Hi, Mom. Her voice was soft, almost unsure. Kathleen, are you busy? Just leaving the office, I replied, leaning against my car. There was a pause, like she was building the courage to say what she needed to. Can we talk? I already knew where this was going. Go ahead. She let out a shaky breath, and for the first time in years, I thought she actually sounded nervous. It's about your father, she said. And Bradley. Of course it was. They're struggling, sweetheart. I know you and your father had words, but this isn't just about him. The company's barely holding on. Your brother, he's drowning. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Mom, please, Kathleen. Her voice cracked. I froze. My mother had always been composed. She didn't cry. She didn't raise her voice. If my father was the storm, she was the stillness beneath it. Calm, passive, silent. But now, there was a tremble in her words. Real fear. And for a moment, guilt crept in. Your father isn't doing well, she said. He's not eating. He barely sleeps. I'm worried about him. I closed my eyes. Classic. My father hadn't called again because he knew it wouldn't work. He'd figured out I was immune to his pressure now. But my mother? He knew I still cared about her. He knew she was the one person I might bend for, even when I wouldn't bend for him. And there she was, playing her usual role. The worried wife. The peacemaker. The one who always tried to fix things if I just gave in. But this time, I saw it for what it was. I swallowed the lump in my throat and kept my voice steady. Mom, I love you, but I'm not doing this. She inhaled sharply. Kathleen, no, I said again, firmer now. This is how it always goes, isn't it? He sets everything on fire, and you show up to clean up the ashes. You beg, you patch things up, and he walks away like nothing happened. Over and over again. There was silence, but I didn't stop. I'm done being part of that. I saved his company once. I saved him once. And how did he repay me? By cutting me out like I never mattered. He made his choice. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Kathleen, it's not that simple. Yes, I said quietly, for once it is. I climbed into my car, gripping the steering wheel as I tried to hold back everything bubbling inside me. You want to save him, Mom? Then let Bradley do it. That's who he bet everything on, not me. She let out a long, shaky breath. I could tell she understood, but understanding and accepting are two very different things. I just don't want to lose my daughter over this, she said finally. A lump formed in my throat. You won't, I promised. But I won't lose myself either. And before she could say anything else, I ended the call. The next morning, I woke up to a headline flashing across my phone screen. Wright and Sons at risk as family dispute unfolds. I blinked, rereading it. What the hell? I scrolled through the article, my stomach twisting. Anonymous sources claimed that a family member had walked away during a critical time, putting the company and its employees in danger. They didn't name me, but they didn't need to. Anyone paying attention could figure it out. Before I could even finish reading, my phone lit up with messages. From an old college friend. Kathleen, is this about you? From a former client. Hope you're okay. Let me know if you want help getting ahead of this. From my assistant. Want me to start screening calls? And then the worst one. A text from Bradley. You should have just helped, Kathleen. Rage shot through me. This wasn't just a leak, it was a setup. A deliberate, public attack meant to corner me.
Guilt me.
Break me. But that's when I realized something powerful. They had nothing left but pressure tactics, and I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't the little girl at the dinner table, begging to be seen. I wasn't the fixer or the fallback. I wasn't the silent daughter, hiding in the shadows. I was done. I typed a single message back to Bradley. Tell Dad that if he wants to drag me through the mud, he'd better be ready for what comes next. I hit send. I expected instant backlash. My father was the kind of man who couldn't stand being challenged, let alone threatened. But this time, I didn't brace for the storm. I was ready for it. The next morning, I sat in my office, sipping coffee and reviewing financial reports. There was an odd calm in me, like I'd finally stepped out of a storm I'd been in for years. Then there was a knock at the door. My assistant peeked in, looking uncertain. Kathleen, your mother is here. I stiffened. My mother never came, without warning. I set my coffee down and took a slow breath. Send her in. She stepped in moments later, looking exhausted. There were dark circles under her eyes, and she clutched her purse like it was the only thing holding her together. Mom, I said evenly. This is a surprise. She didn't sit. She stood in front of my desk, twisting her hands nervously. Kathleen, she began, then stopped. Her voice shook. Your father, he's furious. I almost laughed. When is he not? This time is different, she said quietly. He's talking to lawyers, my mother said softly. He wants to sue you. I blinked, stunned. Sue me? I repeated, barely believing it. For what? For not giving him my money? Is that illegal now? She hesitated, then swallowed hard. He says you misled the investors, that you sabotaged the company by walking away. I let out a sharp breath through my nose and shook my head. Mom, I didn't sabotage anything. I saved that company. When I left, it was stable. If it's falling apart now, that's on Bradley. That's on Dad. I know, she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. I know, sweetheart. Then why are you here?
I didn't say it out loud.
I already knew. She wasn't here because she agreed with him. She was here because she was scared of him. I need you to make this right, she pleaded. If he goes through with this, even if you win, the damage to your reputation. I cut her off, my voice colder than I expected. I pointed to my phone, still showing the article about Wright and Sons. He already tried to ruin me, I said. He already dragged my name through the mud. And now that it didn't work, he's playing legal games?
No.
I leaned forward. I won't be bullied, Mom. Not by him. Not by anyone. She sat down then, like her legs had finally given up. I don't know what to do, she whispered. I rubbed my temples. This was who she had always been, quiet, passive, always in his shadow. Always smoothing things over, making excuses. I didn't want that to be my story. You have two choices, I said gently. You can keep defending him, keep standing between him and reality, keep letting him treat you like this. I let the silence hang before finishing. Or you can walk away, like I did. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't know how. And that was the difference between us. I had figured it out.
I had found a way out.
She never had, and maybe never would. I love you, Mom, I said softly. But I won't fix this for him. She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Then, without a word, she stood up, wiped her tears, and walked out. The lawsuit never came. It had been an empty threat, just like I suspected. But my father wasn't finished. A few days later, I got a fraud alert from my bank. Someone had tried to access my accounts. My heart pounded as I called the bank. The representative's voice was calm, but serious. "Miss Wright, we detected multiple attempts to access your accounts from an unknown device. We've locked them down for now, but we suggest updating your security settings." I already knew who it was. My father. I wasn't even angry anymore, just tired. He was out of power, out of control, and grasping for whatever was left. I spent the next hour resetting every password, enabling every security measure, and freezing all my financial records. Then I sent a single text to Bradley, me. "Tell Dad if he ever tries to touch my money again, I'll press charges." 40 minutes later, he replied, "Bradley, I didn't know he would do that." I scoffed. "Liar."
Me, you did.
"And you let him?" No reply. I didn't expect one. Bradley was never the mastermind. He was just a pawn, always had been. A week later, another call came. This time, my mother's voice wasn't pleading. It was shaking. "Kathleen," she gasped, "it's your father." He collapsed. For a moment, everything stopped. I froze, gripping the phone tight.
What?
"They rushed him to the hospital," she said, her voice breaking. "His heart. They don't know if he's going to make it." I swallowed hard, my throat tight. I should have felt something.
Pain. Fear.
Regret. But I didn't. I felt nothing. Even now, even with everything that had happened, I knew what my mother was asking.
Come home.
Come back. Fix it. I let out a slow breath.
Keep me updated, I said.
Let me know what the doctors say. She exhaled shakily. Are you coming? I closed my eyes. No, Mom. When I ended the call, I waited to feel something. Guilt, sadness, maybe even relief. But there was nothing. Just quiet. For years, my father had hovered over my life like a shadow I couldn't escape. Every decision I made, every sacrifice, every late night spent fixing problems that weren't mine, was all for him. Trying to prove I was worth something. Trying to be seen. But he never saw me as a daughter. Just a resource. A tool, and now he was lying in a hospital bed, fragile and weak. And I couldn't bring myself to feel what I thought I was supposed to feel. Not anger. Not sorrow. Just emptiness. 5 days passed. 5 days of missed calls from my mother. 5 days of texts from numbers I didn't save. 5 days of silence from me. On the 5th day, another message came through. Mom. He's stable but weak. The doctor said it was a warning. He has to change everything, his diet, his habits. Maybe this is the wake-up call he needed. I stared at the message. A wake-up call?
She still believed that.
She still had hope that the man who spent his whole life manipulating, controlling, and using everyone around him would suddenly change just because his body was finally paying the price. I didn't respond. Later that evening, another message. Mom, he's asking for you. I let out a breath, rubbing my temples. Of course he was. Not because he was sorry. Not because he wanted to make things right. Because he needed something. I typed the only answer I could give. Me. No, I didn't expect a reply. But a few minutes later, the typing bubbles appeared. Mom, I understand. Just think about it, Kathleen. I wouldn't. A week later, the news broke. Right? And Sons was collapsing. This time, it was real. The article didn't hold back. Investors were pulling out, employees were being laid off, and the debt was drowning the company. The empire was crumbling. Bradley had failed. And my father was too sick to save it. I thought Bradley might call, maybe beg, maybe try one last time to pull me back in. But he only sent a bitter text. Bradley, you got what you wanted. I stared at it for a moment, then replied, No, Bradley. I got what I deserved. And for the first time in my life, I meant it. The next morning, I woke up feeling something unfamiliar. Peace. Not relief. Not pride. Just peace. For once, there were no fires to put out. No angry calls. No guilt. No pressure. No one trying to drag me into a mess that wasn't mine. Right? And Sons was sinking, but it wasn't my responsibility. My father was recovering, but I didn't need to be part of his healing. Bradley was facing the consequences, but I didn't have to clean up after him. For the first time ever, my life belonged to me. 1 week later, my mother called again. I considered ignoring it, but I didn't. "Mom," I answered, keeping my voice calm.
She paused.
"Your father is home," she said quietly. I didn't say anything. "He's different," she added quickly. "Quieter. He hasn't said much since coming back from the hospital." Still, I said nothing. "I think he wants to see you," she said, her voice uncertain. He didn't have to ask, I already knew what he wanted. I let out a slow breath. Then came the question I had been dreading. Softly, she asked, "Would you? Would I? Would I walk back into that house? Sit across from the man who had erased me from his life, who saw me not as a daughter, but as something to be used and tossed aside? Would I give him one last chance?" I closed my eyes. The answer was clear.
"No, Mom."
"I won't." There was silence on the line. Then a shaky breath. "I thought you might say that," she murmured. I swallowed hard. "Are you going to stay?" She didn't answer right away. Then, in a voice so soft it was almost a whisper, she confessed, "I don't know how to leave." I pressed my fingers to my temple, the weight of it all settling in. "Then that's your choice," I said gently, just like I made mine. She inhaled sharply like she had something more to say, but the words didn't come. Instead, she whispered, "I love you, Kathleen." And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. "I love you too, Mom," I replied. Then I ended the call. That was the last time I ever spoke to her. A month later, I stood in front of my new home. It was nothing fancy, just a small house with no history, no shadows, no echoes of a past filled with pain and hunger for love. But it was mine. Sitting on the porch, sipping my coffee, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Whether it was my mother, my father, or someone from their world, it didn't matter. They weren't part of my life anymore. With one last look at the screen, I tapped block and slid the phone into my pocket. A quiet smile played on my lips as I turned and walked back inside. I'd won, not by their standards of power, wealth, or control, but in a way that mattered more. I was free. Free from the weight of my father's empire, from the chains of family expectations, from the grip of the past. And this time, nothing could take that away from me.